Hello everyone, this is Starry Ari's ASMR. I am Ari, and today I wanted to do a little bit of a show and tell of some items and pictures from my recent trip. So my husband and I went to the East Coast. We were kind of around Maryland and Pennsylvania and Washington, D.C. And we were visiting my in-laws, and we had a lot of fun, just family time, but we also did just some fun, touristy things while we were there. So I thought I would just tell you about our trip and show you some of the souvenirs. I think I only actually have maybe 2 souvenirs. We brought back gifts for other people, but we've left them with those people. But I thought it'd be fun to tell you about the trip and show you some pictures and some little video clips that I grabbed. So we flew out pretty early, and we actually had a layover that was probably the worst connection that I've ever had flying. This is kind of a bummer story, but I just want to rant about it. So we had a 2-hour layover, and that's a perfect time for us because we're not spending too much time just holed up in an airport, but it gives us enough time to eat something if we want, and we always pack our own snacks and refill our water bottle and just kind of take a breather for a minute. And when we started boarding for our plane, so our plane was originally a little bit delayed at our connection, and we were that's okay, so it extended our layover a little bit. And then we started boarding. Finally, our plane arrived and we all started boarding, and it was so warm on that plane. I mean, I think outside where we were at, I think it was 100 degrees, and of course the plane's air just doesn't work really until you're up in the air. And so we were all just sweating and so warm the entire boarding process. And then we sat on the tarmac for about an hour, and our captain came on and said that, there's a little bit of weather, so we're going to be waiting it out. The airport's grounded all of the planes here, and we're just going to see if it passes. Lo and behold, it did not pass, but they did not or could not let us off the plane. Something weird kind of happened where it was the weather was bad enough, and we had already the little walkway that connects to the airplane had already been pulled back or something, and they were saying that the thunder and lightning was bad enough that they didn't want to reconnect it. So we were all just sitting there in the heat, and they finally reconnected things and told people, if we're still delayed, we have to get extra fuel because we're going to be flying through the weather a little bit of a different route than we originally wanted. So we need to refuel and get a little more fuel than we originally planned for. So it's going to be a further delay. If you want to get off the plane, you can do so, but that's at your own risk, and you will not be able to reboard. And we were oh my gosh, we had been sitting there for so long. We had seen them actually serve water to first class, and we were not first class flyers. We're back in economy with all of the rest of the poor schmucks. And then they never served water to anyone further back. And so we were all sitting there, and luckily, my husband and I always pack a water bottle, so we were good to go. But there were people near us that didn't have anything, and it was like so chaotic. And finally, after maybe another like 30 minutes, they said, okay, you can deboard, you can get off the plane, and you will be allowed to get back on the plane. And we were like, let's go. And it was immediately maybe like 30 degrees cooler when we stepped off of the plane into the airport. Like, it was so much cooler. It had gotten so hot on that plane. And so we were like, oh, this is great, let's just like wait it out. It's okay. We had people picking us up, and we were kind of worried about like coming in a lot later than expected, but we kind of made it work. And then maybe like 30 minutes after we got off the plane, they were like, okay, everybody, we have to board again. Let's go through that process. So we all board again. It's still crazy hot on that plane. And then we wait an hour more on the plane after we had boarded, because they said that they ran out of water, because when we had like gotten off the plane, anybody that had stayed on the plane could walk up to the front and get water from the flight attendants, and so they had ran out of water. And we were like, why was that not something that had been taken care of while we were off of the plane? Like, why do we now all have to sit here for another hour to wait to bring like water to the plane? We had no idea what was going on. So it was like the most chaotic. We were so warm. I am not somebody that is like claustrophobic. I do pretty well in like small tight spaces, but like I was feeling anxious and was having to tell myself just to breathe, like it's okay, we're okay. But it was so warm. So our connecting flight was kind of a bit of a disaster, but we ended up making it, and it all turned out okay. So we flew into Baltimore, and we had a few days set aside with my father-in-law to go to the beach. So we went to Ocean City, Maryland. Let me see if I can show you. I don't know if it's going to focus on it, but we got this little keychain, and it was from Ocean City, Maryland. And we have actually been to Ocean City before, but we hadn't really spent, it was just a day trip, so we hadn't really spent much more time than that. And we had a couple of days at an Airbnb, and we were able to enjoy the beach. And I love the beach, so we just kind of lounged, and we rented some beach chairs and umbrellas and just kind of hung out and read some books and enjoyed the water. It was pretty warm, but it was really nice to be at the beach with the breeze and be able to go into the cold water. And I had never actually had Maryland crab, and so my father-in-law took us to a place that mostly it was like a crab house, and we got a huge platter of crabs, and it was just for the three of us, my husband, myself, and my father-in-law, and we ate so much crab. Now, coming from the West Coast, the only type of crab I'd ever really ever had was like Dungeness, so like king crab, very large legs. You get a lot of meat for the work that you put into it. And I thought that the crabs that we had, they were like tasty, but they were like so much smaller. And I would never say this while we were in Maryland, and I would never say it directly to somebody from Maryland, but I was like kind of a little bit disappointed because we spent so much time cracking open those crabs, and I think it was also like we were beginners at it, and we weren't the most efficient, but I was like spending a decent amount of time cracking open the crabs for like the smallest amount of meat. But they were tasty, and it was a fun experience, you know. It was something that we hadn't done and we really wanted to do and just give it a try. So that was pretty fun. And then after our Ocean City trip, we came back to my husband's grandmother's house, and we did a big family dinner, and that was really, really fun. We got to meet my brother-in-law's fiance for the first time, so that was very exciting. And we have some of their like wedding party festivities coming up, and we're excited about that. And it was just really nice to be able to like have everyone gathered in one place and just kind of see everyone, especially because we weren't there for as long as we have been for trips in the past, so we didn't have as much time to like go spend individually with people. But that was really nice to be able to just, you know, eat some good food, socialize, hang out. So it was really good. It was really good to see everyone. And then after that, we did the family dinner, and then that next day we traveled to Philadelphia, and my husband's other set of grandparents live in Philadelphia, and we really enjoy going and spending time with them, and it's usually very like relaxed. So some of his family are very like, they, you know, want to like do lots of stuff, which we love, and that's great. But like the set of grandparents are like very just chill, so we play like lots of board games and just like sit around and talk, and that was just really lovely. And we did go to Barnes & Noble and picked up a few books. So they love bookstores, and they used to have a locally owned bookstore that they used to go to with my husband and his siblings when they visited, but sadly that bookstore had closed down, and so that no longer existed. So we went to Barnes & Noble, and my father-in-law has a Barnes & Noble like membership, or like whatever it's called, and he had a free gift on his account, and so he got this tote bag. So this tote bag was free, and he gave it to us, mainly because we had quite a few books, and it was kind of nice to like have something extra like this to be able to carry around our gifts and souvenirs that we were picking up. It was very easy to pack into our suitcases, and we actually somehow like had tons of space in our suitcases when we were actually flying out, and we had 2 carry-ons and 1 checked bag, and I'm usually somebody that like overpacks, so I was very surprised about that we somehow had all of this extra space. And so we kind of hung out at Barnes & Noble, got some coffee and pastries, looked at books, and just kind of hung around. And then we saw fireflies. So I was so excited to see so many fireflies on our trip, and I was able to get some really great footage. I'd only seen fireflies once before on one of our trips, and I want to say it was only like 2 or 3 fireflies, but my husband's family was saying that they'd been seeing a lot more this year, so they don't know if they are just kind of in a cycle, and like some years they're just not going to see as many of them as other years, so they're not too sure. But it was really, really cool. It was like magical and amazing, and it just doesn't look real, you know. It just looks like special effects. So that was really, really cool to see. And then we also went to this little Swedish cabin that was just like right in the middle of our area. So we were kind of like in Philadelphia and Upper Darby, which I think is like a suburb of Philadelphia. I'm not actually too sure. And it's like tucked away in a neighborhood. Like you would have no idea that it's there. But it was like this lovely little, like, beautiful forested area right off of a creek. It was a really cool cabin to be able to go into. And it was just like an early settlement cabin. And so that was really, really neat. And then we, of course, got some Philly cheesesteaks, which I think we usually have to do every time we go there. And then we also walked around a nearby campus, and I don't recall what college this was. It was like a small private college, but they had a beautiful flower garden and just like really pretty grounds around the college. So we went on a nice walk around that and looked at the flowers, and there were so many butterflies. It was kind of crazy how many butterflies there were. So that was really, really pretty. And then from Philadelphia, we went to New York City. And we had been there once before just for a day trip, and that was our last trip out to the East Coast. And we really like doing this, so this is our time. Like, my husband and I usually like to try and like get away for, you know, a day or so just by ourselves, just to kind of like, you know, do our own thing for a little bit. I think it's always nice visiting people, but it's also nice to kind of have that little time to ourselves. So it was also right around our anniversary, so it really worked out nicely. And we stayed at the Hotel Leo, and it was just like this really neat, like old type of hotel building. And we didn't really splurge on a room with a view because we knew that we were just kind of gonna be like, you know, going around the city anyways, and like not really like we were just spending one night there, so we had kind of like a decent amount planned. But our room did have this nice little view of some of the buildings. Our main view was just like looking at another building, but kind of off to the side you could see the street, and we were a little bit high up, so that was kind of nice. And we walked around the city, and we visited Central Park. And we'd visited Central Park our last time too. And I ended up just loving it so much. And it was just like, it's just such a beautiful space, like smack dab in the middle of the city. And it's so fun to people watch. I love people watching. And so we got some tasty lunch while we were in the park after kind of walking around for a little bit. And it was kind of the perfect time, so we had scheduled to go to the American Museum of Natural History. And I do have a souvenir from that. So it is this claw. This dinosaur claw. And I don't actually really know much about dinosaurs, but last time we were there, did not get to go to the museum because we didn't really think about like booking anything in advance. And when we showed up, the line was like around the block to get in, and we were like, no. There were other things that we, you know, would be able to go see. We were like, next time we're here, we'll maybe try and like plan ahead. So this time we did plan ahead, and we did get our tickets in advance, and we were able to skip the really long line. And they had tons of great exhibits. My husband is a huge museum buff. Like, I also like history, but like not nearly as much as my husband does. So he loved it, and we got to see all of the like dinosaur exhibits, and they had tons of like animals. Like they had like African animals and like a North American exhibit and like all of the different continents. Like it was really, really cool. And they had a like human ancestors exhibit, and I minored in anthropology in college, so it was like really fun to kind of like look back on all of the like fossils and skeletons that we have of like ancient humans and also like our distant relatives. So that was really cool. And they also had a minerals exhibit, and I think that one was like the coolest because they had a massive chunk of a meteorite, and they also had like a huge geode, and it was really cool. It was like it was massive. They had some really beautiful minerals, and we overall really enjoyed the museum, and we probably could have spent more time there than we did, but we kind of just hit the main exhibits that were most interesting, I think, to me, because my husband like could have hit all of the exhibits if he wanted, you know, like he's interested in it all, but we just didn't have time. So we did kind of the most interesting exhibits. After we walked through the museum, we stopped at the gift shop and got our little souvenir. And this is actually a magnet, so we like to do fridge magnets as our souvenirs when we travel places. So the little keychain from Ocean City, I think we have little magnet like sticker things that I think we're gonna put on the back of that one and use that as our like fridge magnet from Maryland. And after the museum, we decided to go back to the hotel to get ready for dinner and our show. So we got ready and walked back through Times Square. I'm not a huge fan of Times Square. Like New York in general is pretty crowded, but Times Square specifically is like crazy. And the time that we were walking through, it was like lit up like crazy. It wasn't really too dark yet, but it was just like prime dinner time where like everyone was out and about, and it was like way busier than the first time that we had gone there. And we ended up getting dinner at this really cute place. I think it was called Azaleas. I think I have a picture of the menu. And it was an Italian restaurant. So we had Italian food at our wedding, and my husband and I love Italian food. Italian is our favorite cuisine. So we definitely wanted to get Italian to celebrate our anniversary. And then after dinner, we walked over to the Walter Kerr Theater because we were going to see Hadestown. And I actually have the playbill from the show here. So we went to see Hadestown. And our first trip to New York, we did not have time to catch a show. So we really wanted to make sure that we could do that this trip. And that was partially why we wanted to like spend a night in New York City. And we had heard really great things about a local production of Hadestown. Neither of us are big like musical people. We don't really, follow or watch a lot of musicals. But we absolutely loved this. We thought that the story and the songs were just really great, and the set design blew me away. Like, this beautiful, and there were some really creative uses of the set, and it was just like really, really amazing. Like there were some moments in the play where I was like jaw like dropped, like it was just really, really cool. So we really, really enjoyed this, and I think if we do go back to New York City, which I imagine we will, maybe the next trip out to the East Coast, but I think that we will try and catch another Broadway show because it was just so fun. The only downside is that, you know, a lot of these theaters are like historical buildings, and they're quite small, which is great for the actual show. Like it feels very intimate. You can see, like, we got pretty cheap seats, but we still had like a great view of the stage, and we felt like we were still really close, so that was really nice. However, the seats were so close together, like the actual aisles and rows were like so squished that like my feet, like I'm not particularly tall, and my feet weren't able to go at like a full, 90-degree angle. Like I was having to bend my feet back. And so my poor husband was like even more squished than me. So at intermission, like his legs had like completely fallen asleep. So I don't know, maybe we'll try a different theater, but we definitely had a wonderful time seeing Hadestown. And there's some songs from this that like stuck in my head the rest of the trip. Really, really great. Definitely recommend if you get a chance to see it. And then the next morning, we went to get some New York bagels, which I think you just kind of have to do when you're in New York. And we went to Bryant Park, and we got to see the New York Public Library lions. So it was pretty neat, and we just kind of hung around. We had a pretty slow morning. We just got bagels and like people watched. Like I said, I love people watching, and New York is certainly like top tier for it. So that was really, really fun and just kind of a chill morning. And then we left kind of like right midday. We took a train back to Maryland, and we spent a few days back there just kind of visiting with family again. And we also did a touristy day at Washington, D.C. And if you did not know, all of the Smithsonian museums in Washington, D.C. are free. They're like entirely free. You don't have to pay any admissions costs. So we'd already been to a lot of the museums there, but we hadn't actually seen the National Museum of the American Indian. And the outside is this like really, really cool architectural building. And we also had kept hearing that they have like a great cafeteria, so we had planned it that we would go there, like walk around the museum and then catch lunch. So we did that, and we thought that it was really, really neat. They had some really amazing exhibits, and we didn't get to see all of them, and one of the sections was actually closed. I don't know if they were doing repairs or setting up a new exhibit, I'm not too sure, but we were able to see most of it. And after that museum, we went to the Library of Congress, which we had not done before. And it is this like beautiful, beautiful building. A lot of the like DC buildings are just really gorgeous. But we got to go in and we saw the like main reading room, which is amazing and has so many books. And while we were there, they had an exhibit, I think called The Two Georges. And it was about the parallels between George Washington and King George III. And that was really interesting. And like, similarities between their lives. paths and their trajectories and like where they, interconnect. And then of course they also had a section of books from Thomas Jefferson's personal library. So not all of them were original, but a lot of them were, and that was really cool. They had little markings on the books that were original, and there were so many there, and that was just really, really neat. And after the Library of Congress, we went to the Botanic Gardens, and we have been there before, and we just love it. It is so beautiful, and they have like lots of different environments set up, and my favorite is definitely the tropical environment, because it's like this huge room with so many types of plants, and they have some stairs that you can go up onto, like a walking platform above, and you can like look down on all of the plants, and we just love it. It's like so nice, and it's fun to look around at the different plants from all around the world. And they did have the corpse flower, so that's the flower that famously, when it blooms, smells like a corpse, hence the name. But maybe thankfully or unthankfully, depending on your perspective, it was not in bloom while we were there, so we did not get to see it. However, that also meant that we did not need to smell it. So that was, take that for what you will. That was, I think, our last like full day there, and we flew home the next day, and thankfully did not have as bad of an experience with our connecting flight. Everything went exactly as planned, so that was very welcome after our flight out. And we overall had like just a really, really lovely time. It was really great to see a lot of family and just spend time with people and do some more sightseeing of things that maybe we hadn't seen or that we had but we just wanted to see again. And while we were gone, my parents watched Edna, our dog, for us, and she has a great time when my parents watch her. They take her on cheap rides and let her like go in and out of their fenced yard like as she pleases, and it's like a secured yard that we know that she can't escape from. And so she just has like a great time playing and hanging out, and she really enjoyed herself. And she was also just so sweet when we came back. She just like immediately flops over for belly rubs and scratches. So she was very excited to see us. But she's such a sweet girl, so she had a good time while we were gone too. So overall, I think it was a really lovely trip. I was really glad that we were able to make the trip out. We always have a nice time, and we're actually going to be traveling out there next year for my brother-in-law's wedding. So overall, we had a really nice time, but it was also really nice to just get back home and be able to like relax for a bit. Like, I'm definitely a bit of an introvert, and I can be very like outgoing and like personable and like, like enjoy time with others, but it is very draining for me, and being on the go and like on all the time, it's just like a lot. So when we got home, I was just like, I need to do nothing. I need to just like recharge and just like enjoy being alone and by ourselves and like just not do anything at all. So that was very lovely to get back home, sleep in our own bed, but we're just always so thankful and grateful when we travel out there that we're, usually able to stay with family, and like people always want to like treat us out to dinner and stuff, so that's always just really nice. But that was our trip out to the East Coast. I hope that you enjoyed kind of listening to me ramble on a little bit about it, seeing some pictures and videos and some of our like souvenirs. I'd love to hear if you had any fun summer trips, or if you still have trips planned. We actually have one more trip planned for this summer coming up, but it's a lot shorter than our previous trip. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day.